Neddenriep from IndyStar joining us today. Normally on with Wednesdays, couldn't join us yesterday, so switching around a little bit, but gets us closer to the Friday games as some big games coming up. And I was also reading about Caden Curry. He's still just going through this season. He's. It's not very often that a defensive player garners most of the attention, I think, and maybe it's because some of the other players are off the table already, like daggone it, Jackson off to Tennessee already, and some of these guys have committed. But man, he's the guy right now in Indiana he's the top recruit left, I would imagine, isn't he?
Yeah, he's probably the top, even of the guys who are committed, and there's how football recruiting goes sometimes, sometimes players have to jump on a situation where, they may commit a little bit earlier because that offer may not be there in the long term. So, Curry's kind of in the situation where I think he's able to wait and take his visits and, kind of do it on his own terms, maybe more than others are able to. But yeah, I mean, he's I've covered him a lot. He's obviously a big time prospect and, even a really good baseball player too. And I know he really loves baseball, but his future will be in football at the collegiate level for sure. But yeah, I mean, Greg had gone out there and watched him too play the other night against North Central. Greg Doyle, our columnist, and I think was intrigued just to see him up close. And I know he wrote about him this week and obviously very impressive too. So, he's just so quick. He's so dominant. You're right. I mean, you don't see, the nature of football. You're kind of drawn to the offensive side because that's where the numbers come from. That's where the yards and touchdowns and, that's where the eyeballs usually go to is who's got the ball. But it's almost impossible not to, if you know who Curry is, and even if you don't, you're after a while you're like, wow, who's that number 91? Who's just in the backfield consistently, and they have other really good players too on that defense. So he's not the only one. Their defensive line is really, really good, and I don't know how to sort of quantify that and write about how dominant they are, other than just to write about how dominant they are. It's hard to know historically, just how they stack up, but it's got to be one of the best, defensive lines. And he's a major reason for that. You have to double him. And, when you double him, then it leaves other guys who are also very talented, able to, just destroy your backfield pretty much. So, but yeah, he's going to have, he's taken a couple of visits already, Ohio State game against Oregon, and he took his official to IU, and, he's kind of going through the process. And I would imagine, I think here in the next month or so, we'll probably have at least that was his plan last I talked to him, to try to have a decision made.
And, we think back when a defender does get that kind of attention, it's, you think of guys like Jadeveon Clowney when he was in. I will never, as long as I live, forget the one clip, the bowl game they were playing. Was it Michigan? I think South Carolina,
yeah.
Michigan.
Yeah,
that I will never, ever forget that clip. It was, to me, one of the greatest clips of all time in football. And Bosworth, a defender. Think back of, Desmond Howard, didn't he play defensive back much at all, did he? Or if any?
Charles Woodson played.
Charles Woodson is right.
Yeah.
Charles Woodson, Deion Sanders even.
Oh, yeah.
But completely different style. But you've got to be over the top special as a defender to get equal or better attention than an offensive player, than a quarterback. I mean, you've got to be spectacular. And I think that he might be in that spectacular column defending wise.
Yeah, at the high school level. I mean, that's a good point, because I remember like in Ndamukong Suh in college, when he was at Nebraska, and they didn't even have a very good offense at all, but he would just, almost single-handedly pulled them to a conference title. They almost beat Texas about 10 years ago, in that Colt McCoy team. And he was just doing everything. He probably should have won the Heisman Trophy that year. So it's really, I'm always, of the belief that, I think the most important position, for success is probably the defensive line. If you have a dominant defensive line, the more I cover, high school and watch college and even pro. I mean, look at you know the players now at the professional level who are Aaron Donald, for instance, for the Rams. I mean, those guys are hard to come by, and I probably the most position that it's the hardest to find guys who are just dominant. And Caden Curry is definitely there's a reason why he has all these offers. It's not a fluke. So, but yeah, I mean, to your point, I think it does take because normally, like I said, you're drawn to the offensive guys. But to see what he's doing, and it really is impressive. I mean, if you and I tried the Carmel game this year, I really tried to focus on him. You're covering the game, so you're not watching him every play, but it's just impossible not to notice, what he's doing and just wrecking play for the first quarter and a half of that game. He was just wrecking everything that first down plays would go for -3 yards. I mean, just, and that's, setting them behind the chains basically on every possession. So, it's really impressive, and teams try to run away from him. And like I said, they have other guys who are very good and other Division I players on that defensive line. So that adds to it too. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think he's got a real shot at Mr. Football when I think he might be the front runner, halfway through the season. I'll take a closer look at that probably here in a couple of weeks. But I don't sense that he's an outsider for that award. I think he might be the guy that most people would choose right now.